Okay, so we are going to be taking a look at the Vienna Gambit. There are some other stuff that you need to know that won't be covered in this video, but I will definitely be making a study for it and a video for it coming up, but I didn't have time to do it right now, and I wanted to give you guys something to work with. So let's start off with the Vienna Gambit. This is something that you may see very often at the lower level, and specifically the accepted, which is not seen at higher levels because it's bad for black. And this is why it's so good at these lower levels, and that's why I'm recommending it to you. But before we start and look at the lines, I highly recommend that you guys make a chessable account because we're going to be able to take the PGN of all of these files, which is what I want you guys to do. Is so you're going to copy the PGN here. You're going to go to chessable, and you're going to go to tools, and you're going to create a course. Now I think you can just go to like setup position or where, hold on. Import PGN right here. And then you can go switch to copy and paste, and then you can put it in here. And I already have one as white and black. Now I recommend you guys do this as well because it's going to make studying your openings so much easier. And it takes a little bit of time and effort, but it'll be fine. So you do that, and then you just click import, and then we can check it, and it'll import it right into here. So we just put in the first one, which is just the Vienna Gambit, showing what it is, and as you can see, it shows it here, and then you'll be able to study that. So I just wanted to put that out there because it's just a tool that is underrated. But let's begin. What is the Vienna Gambit? Well, the Vienna Gambit starts with e4. The opponent has to go e5. If they don't play e5, then we're not able to play the Vienna Gambit. Now we're going to play knight to c3. This marks the Vienna game. Now, there are different continuations. The continuation that we're looking at today is knight to f6. Some other moves that we'll be taking a look at later on is knight to c6 and a bishop to b4. And I'm sure that there's other moves, like people can just go here, they can go here. Of course, there's different moves, but the main ones by far are knight f6 and knight to c6. And then bishop b4 is good to know. Some tricky lines. Also, I guess there's bishop to c5 as well, which I believe is the Anderson's defense. And of course, they can play d6. It's kind of passive, leaving the bishop in. But the Vienna Gambit is after knight to f6, and we are going to play the brilliant f4. Now, yes, this is a free pawn. But what happens if black actually accepts our gambit? Well, the way to punish this move isn't by developing, isn't by taking the center. No, we're going to play e5 here. This is how you go ahead and punish your opponent for accepting your gambit. And from this point, there are really only two moves. The knight is under attack, so they gotta move it. Obviously, if they go here, you just take. I've had some of these games at lower levels, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you guys just have your opponent play knight to g4 or knight to h5, and if they do, you just take it. No questions asked. But the other line, which is seen at lower levels as well, is this move queen to e6. So let's go ahead and hop into that. So after we push through, black thinks that they're stopping our threat on the knight. And at the moment, they're correct. They are stopping the threat on the knight. We cannot capture this. However, this is actually a really bad move because the queen does not really want to be here. And with our knight on c3, we have tempo moves on the queen plus threatening forks, and this pawn is very strong. So what do we actually do here? Well, we break the pin. We play queen to e2, re-threatening the knight. So now the knight has to move. Once again, I mean, if the knight goes here, you can just take it. They can take the pawn with check, but then you just block. It'll be fine. So most times they're gonna go back. Like, they almost have to. And on Lee chess, as you can see, it is the most common move here. And 72% of the time, white wins from this position. And that's at an average rating of 1600. And if you're in here watching this, you shouldn't be 1600. You should be below 1500 for sure. So, knight goes back. And now what do? We have to be very patient with the Vienna Gambit. Okay, it looks like we should take the center. It looks like we want to open up our bishop to take, but there's a very, very important key whenever we play f4 or any f-pawn move. This diagonal here becomes extremely weak. So we actually have to address that first, because if we were to just play this, well, this check, if we try to do this, now we're losing. We got FG, and if we take back, it's just a mess. We don't want to do this. Actually, if we take back, we lose the rook, sorry. So let's not do that. The move is knight to f3. This move stops black from being able to play queen h4 check. So this is a very thematic move within the Vienna Gambit. One that we need to remember, and one that we will play most of the time, and stay patient. There's no threat on this pawn. So knight to f3 is played. And now knight c6. In this position, black really shouldn't do this. It's the most common move, as you can see. 80,000 games played in it. However, like I said before, the queen is misplaced. The queen, according to the computer, I don't have the computer on right now, but just from recent and old studies, I believe they're supposed to go here or like just go back or something. They shouldn't keep the queen here because it's just a target for us. Anyways, you'll probably see knight c6, attacking the pawn, and now we simply just play d4. We open up the bishop and we reinforce the center, and already this position looks crushing for white. We have a great center, we're about to get our pawn back, and we're ready to castle long. However, there's even more threats in here, because as you can see, the most common move by far is d6, and this is a losing move. Now, back when I didn't really study openings all that much and I played this at lower levels, if anybody played d6, I would just auto take the pawn back. Don't do that. There's a crushing move after d6. So I want you to pause the video and see if you can solve it, because it'll get you thinking. And the same thing applies to f6. If they play f6, it's going to be similar. These are both very bad moves. And f6 is the third top computer move, played 9% of the time, and d6 is played 50% of the time. So this is the move that you're probably going to see. And the way that we punish this is by playing knight to d5. Like I mentioned earlier, the queen should probably not be on the square. So we're attacking the queen and we're threatening a fork. How does black deal with this? Well, they have two squares to deal with that, and both of them are just bad. I mean, if they go here, we can take discovered check and then fork, Or we can go for the tricky line where we fork first, which is what I recommend. Even if they go here, it's the same thing. We can just sack the knight, because if black were to take, we go ahead and take back. And it's uh-oh spaghetti-o, because if they try to block, we just take it. And now the king's got to move because it's in check, or they block the check, but the queen is hit. And they're just lost. So that's a very good tactic to look out for. If they play f6, it's a similar kind of thing. We're going to play knight d5. Once again, if the queen moves, we can just take here. We don't really need to do anything else, because now there's a discovered check. Whatever they block with, we just take with the pawn. And if they go here, this is just absolutely terrible. The knight's coming in. I mean, you're just lost. You're completely lost. The king's going to run to the edge. And then, I don't know, we have so many checks. We got this one, we got this one. We could probably just sack the knight, because if the king ever comes here, we're going to be able to take. It's extremely, extremely bad. Also, now we can just take here. Wherever the king goes, they're just lost. So, they can't play queen e7. It's a bad move. But what if they just retreat the knight? So they play knight g8. This automatically just looks terrible. This is not how you want to be playing chess. You don't want to move the knight out and then move it back and then have to move it again. We're taught in chess that we don't want to move a piece multiple times in the opening. Now, yes, we did push the pawn twice, but for good reason. We take control of the center. We're controlling these squares, not these squares. But we're controlling the center very well. We're getting ready to put another pawn in the center, recapture, and we're restricting the natural spot for the knight. And we made the knight move twice. So this is already really good for white. Once again, key move. Do not forget this move. You have to play knight f3 to stop the check. Okay? So don't forget this move. It's very important. Now, they're going to probably play d6. It's played 40% of the time. The other move is knight c6. Both moves, I mean, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to take the whole center. d4. And we're getting ready to capture here. If they take the pawn, we're probably just going to go queen e2, pin the pawn. So they take. We play queen e2. And yeah, we're threatening to take this with check. They can protect like this, but then we can just take the pawn, or take the pawn, threaten discovery. There's so many different moves here. Let's say that they go knight to c6, which is the top computer move. Now we just capture. We just recapture the pawn. This is pinned. It's not going anywhere. This is protected. It's good to note that if they try this, then we have check. And we're winning a piece. So that's not the move. If they try to pin us here, which I believe is the top computer move, no, it's not. It's a move that I've seen, but this feels pretty natural. I feel like a beginner would put the bishop here, try to damage the pawns. I mean, if they do this, we can just recapture or something. Knight takes, pawn takes, or bishop takes. We have threats on this. They're gonna have to weaken the king. But for this case, we're gonna be taking a look at bishop b4, and we're gonna simply castle. Because if they go for this, we're not actually worried about our pawns getting doubled like this. Our king is actually really safe. Black has 0 development. And we're ready to capture the pawn and go here, here, and attack. The king is stuck in the center. Now, they might go knight g e7, but this is a very big mistake because now we can just take on e5. Opening up an attack on the queen. Now, they're going to have to probably play bishop d7 because the queen has no other squares. And this is very, very passive. We're going to hop in with the knight. And what would you play in this position? I know the most natural move to me looks like castling, but this is a losing mistake. And this is why this gambit is so good, because they can just be losing, playing natural moves. So we have castles. We're going to bring the queen in. Mate is threatened, and we have a lot of pressure here, and we've opened up our bishop, and then the rook's ready to go. So they try to kick us away. This is a very common move, although apparently people don't know how to play against h6 because 33% of the time white has lost in 3 games. It's only been met, but I'm assuming that they probably didn't find this move, and that's the move that you're going to find because I'm teaching you it. After rook takes, we go ahead and pin that, and you know, they're going to have to go protect. We can take, cash in, and we're out material. So let's keep going. Now there's the Vienna Gambit declined. The people who don't accept their gambits, come on, boring, but actually is probably the way that they should play. They should not take our gambit. Now, this is the position. We play our f4. They try to protect the pawn using the knight. This is also a pretty common mistake that we're going to be able to punish because we know what we're doing. We're going to go ahead and take. And after takes, we play d4. The knight must go back, and then we play e5. And if you guys know what the Halloween Gambit is, this is very similar, except we have not sacked a knight. In the Halloween Gambit, it goes like this. Boom, 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 boom. However, this is different because we actually have an extra knight. We didn't sack any material. So this is really, really good for us. And we should not be scared of this position at all. Now, after the knight goes back to g8, once again, a very common theme, knight f3. We must protect that h4 square. It's very important. Black is going to play d6. It's very common. Played 40% of the time. Bishop b4 is the other one. So if bishop b4, I mean, we can block. We could maybe not even be scared. We could probably just do this. Once again, we're not really scared of the doubled pawns. However, principally, this is maybe a better move. But this could run into some problems after, you know, say that, where does he even go? I mean, really, they should probably try to develop, but their king's just stuck in the center. We have this, we have the open F file. It looks terrifying. Like, I'm already thinking of sacrifices here. But castling's probably just the best. And then, I mean, if they do this, I mean, this looks very scary for him. Knight going here maybe is strong. They can't really kick us away. The castle, We have 3 attackers on this pawn. It's not a position that black wants to get into. So let's say that they go ahead and play d6. We're going to keep up with our development here. Once again, it's a very common theme in the Vienna that we're trying to attack this weak f7 square. A lot of the times the bishop's coming to c4. They take in the center. Now we're going to go ahead and pin. Bishop pins. This is very, very natural. Because what we wanted to do here was just take and threaten discoveries. So after takes, we would be taking with the queen. And if they block here, we would take this. And if they go here, we could probably just simply castle. And then after queen takes here, we're attacking this pawn. So we just have a lot of development. However, if they go for this, trying to stop us, we're just going to castle. There's, you know, if they want to take, which is the best move, this is what they should play. And it is played 40% of the time. So this is what we're expecting. Expecting takes. And here we can take with the rook, keeping the pin, but also threatening this. As you can tell, the black king is not very safe. And our king is actually very safe. So the top move played here is queen takes. But after bishop e3, black's in a lot of trouble. If they try to protect here, we can simply just come attack. There's no way that they can really protect this very well. They're just going to get overrun. If they go here, I mean, the king is stuck. Absolutely stuck. We have a lot of pressure here. And we could even think about playing this. Which I don't think I would want to play. But ideas. I haven't actually looked at this position. The knight jump looks very nice. Knight jump has been played 75% of the time in this position. Looks very natural. I would just be worried about going... No, they can't go there. They would lose the queen. And if they go here, maybe pin, but then this... It's very, very, very scary for them. So, in this position, if they don't take, we have some threats. And it's good to know, like, most times they probably will take, but if they don't, let's just say they play a random move here, we're going to go ahead and sacrifice the bishop. Because after it takes, we have this double check on the king, and we're going to be able to take the bishop. Although it looks like our queen is hanging. It looked like in this position we couldn't move the knight. But that's why we lured the king to f7. So that we could give a check, and they can't take the queen, and now we're going to be able to take the bishop. This is a very good tactic to remember in many positions. All right, let's keep going. Vienna Gambit declined with the bishop attacks. So we play our f4, and we're going to see bishop to b4. The idea behind this, okay, it's not the most common, but I've seen it personally, and at first I didn't know how to punish it. So I learned, and I'm going to teach you how to punish it now too. The way that we punish it is by playing fe, and now the knight is under attack, and this pawn is held by the knight. So the whole idea behind bishop to b4 is that after fe, they want to take the knight. Now they have two pieces hanging. What do we do? Well, if you said BC, you are correct. And the point is, if they take this pawn in the center of the board, their knight's misplaced. They're not attacking this, and this square is going to be occupied soon, and this is a weakness. So we can take advantage of that by playing queen to g4. We double attack. We attack the knight, and we attack the pawn. So after this, the most common move is knight to g5, protecting both threats. However, it's not actually. We can go here. We just stay patient. We play d4. Everything's solidified. And the whole point of d4 is that we want to be able to play d5 at some point, because the knight can go to this square. And we're going to want to play d5, kicking it away at some point. If they protect, also the point of d5 or d4, sorry, was to open up an attack on the knight. Ignore me. If they go here, now we just play d5, and the knight is hit again. This pawn's going to fall. The rook's going to be attacked. The bishop's going to come out. It's not good. So if they play h6, protecting the knight, we're going to play h4. After knight to e6, now we see another reason why we play d4 rather than like d3. d5 comes. And in this position, the computer already, like if I remember correctly, I'll turn it on real quick. The computer already just wants something like g6. It is saying just sack the pawn. However, most humans are not going to do that, and they're going to try and save the knight. So they play knight to c5. We're going to take, attacking the rook. The rook must go to f7, or the rook must go to f8, of course, to protect it. But now the king can't castle this way, and they are nowheres close to queenside castling. We're going to take another pawn. This is threatened. Queen has to protect. And now we just go knight f3. We're going to try and apply some more pressure. There's just so many threats here. Black cannot stop them all. They can go here. And our position is just insanely good. I would probably give a check. If they go here, we can just maybe take or just go back or something. I don't know. I guess if check and here we just take, if knight takes, then we can go here applying even more pressure to this pawn. And then we can castle with the open f-file. We're going to put even more pressure. There's a lot of ideas. Maybe even queenside castle is an idea where the queen is in front of the king. So we might have ideas of going rook e1 at some point. But this position is just amazing, and the computer says it's a +7 advantage, and the top computer move is check. For anybody wondering, I didn't know what the top computer move was before, so yeah, we either go check or we just castle. One of those two moves. All right, so now we're going to look at the Vienna Gambit declined, which is just with d6. This isn't bad. This is, a way to play against it. The most common way to play, or not most common, but the best way to play against the Vienna Gambit is by playing d5 rather than d6. However, if you're a Vienna player, you're most likely prepped in d5, which we're going to take a look at a little bit, but not too much because it's not seen at the lower levels as much. If you're at my rating, d5 is played most of the time, and it's very hard to play against, and it's very annoying. However, it's still playable. So after d6, we're going to once again go here, very common because we don't need to even allow them to have tactics like knight takes, check. It wouldn't work here, but just in the future there could be potential tactics with checks. We're always looking out for that queen h4 check. Now, they're probably just going to develop. We will go to c4. I like going here. It's not the best move, I don't believe. I believe going to e2 is better because sometimes they'll come here, and if we ever take, they have some pressure on this pawn. It can get a little bit tricky, but I like to go to c4 and just control this very nice diagonal. They can also probably just kick us away or try to get the bishop, in which case it's just annoying. But let's say that they go here, bishop e7, they've blocked in this bishop, so it doesn't really have any other square, and they're just preparing to castle. We'll just go d3, castles, and this is just a game. We've got out of the opening, we have a good position. Our plan is basically we're going to try and open up the f file. We could probably play a3 at some point to always have an escape square because our bishop is really good, and black is going to want to play knight a5 at some point to attack it. So we can maybe play something like a3 here, but we also want to take at some point. They'll probably pin us. The most common move here is pinning. We can just kick them away, and then if takes, queen takes, I imagine we'll see something like this, and then we can just go here, protect the fork, and yeah, this is just a game. This is just a game. And now we're gonna try to develop the knight somehow, or the bishop somehow, by taking here. We want to move the knight somewheres, but we don't want to blunder this pawn, so don't do that. Yeah. Most common move is c3. I guess we can go here. We threaten to win a pawn here. b5 is most commonly played. Yeah, because if they go here, we can probably take. Although we don't really want to give the bishop up. We're not. No, that's not a good move. b5. We just slide back. And then probably knight takes, pawn takes. We've connected our rooks. We've gotten out of the opening. We're happy. And now you just look for tactics. Be patient. They can play here. Takes. Something like this might arise. But we have a very nice position. We got the open F file. We can even start to target this pawn. It's a little bit weak. We can try and trade this bishop off if we want to. Although we have a lot of pawns on light squares, so I wouldn't really try to trade this off. Personally, it is the most common move. No, sorry, this is the most common move. Attacking the queen. I wouldn't play this personally. Although it is a double attack, but yeah, maybe this is actually a good move. Attacks the queen and this. Yeah, you go here. Queen d5. Queen d7. Yeah. Okay, that's not too bad. It looks like we're getting a pawn. Let's keep going. Bishop sack is what this is called. Can you guess the tactic that's going to arise? All right, so we got the Vienna Gambit. Declined once again. We're going to go knight here. They pin us. And once we see this, we're always looking out for that bishop and knight kind of combination to add an attacker to this. So once we see this, we should have a trigger in our head saying, oh, there might be a tactic arising. And that's why we're going to play knight or bishop to c4. If they play passive, and go here. The best move is knight here, because they want to meet takes with knight takes, applying pressure to everything. And in that case, you just want to play bishop back and protect, which is why bishop to e2 is usually the best move. But, you know, especially at these lower levels, we want to keep things tricky. We want to give our opponent opportunities to blunder. So they play here. They're just a principled player. Develop the bishop, get ready to the castle. We're going to now take because, you know, we're taking. It looks like it's just a trade, right? But if they take back, wada bing, wada boom. Here's our tactic. We remove the defender of this pawn, and now we're just going to be in a much, much better position. The king moves. Now we're going to take. If they take, we just take back. We're ready to castle, and we're going to go crush them. Now let's take a look at the Vienna Gambit main line. Most of you guys won't need to know most of this, but it's very good to have an idea of how to play against the main line because, you know, you may see it sometimes, but it goes like e4, e5, and as I mentioned before, it's this move d5. d5 marks the Vienna Gambit main line, and this is the best way to play against our gambit. We're going to take on e5, and after knight takes, we're going to play queen to f3. This is recommended by Gotham, Hikaru, I believe. I could be wrong about the Hikaru, but I know Gotham recommends queen f3. The other move here is knight f3, although I don't know any of these lines because I've never played it. I've always just played queen f3. And now in this position, there's a few different ways that black can play. They can play knight c6 and f5, or they can just take. In this study here, we are going to be taking a look at what happens after they take. And most commonly, we're going to take with the b pawn because we want to be able to play for the center. Now you can, I used to play a little bit like this. You can play dc and try to get, you know, the queen out or the bishop out early and then castle long. However, over time, I've, you know, went with the bc. I think this is a little bit better. And it sticks to principles. Usually, if you can stick to the principles, like the opening principles, always taking towards the center, most times you're gonna play the better move. And this is a very annoying move that black has. Basically, they're just forcing a queen trade. We're going into an endgame. They're ruining our fun. We want, like, as a Vienna player, we're pushing our f pawn. We're getting all our pieces out. We want to attack. But with this, they're taking a lot of the sting out of our opening. We're going to go g3, and then they're going to go queen e4 check, and we have to take. We don't have a choice. And now after this, we're going to go bishop to g2. We're just attacking the pawn. They'll likely attack our pawn. And now we take, play d4, kick the knight back, and we're just going to develop a little bit, castle, and we have a game. Yeah, I mean, apparently at the 2100 level, black wins 80% of the time here. But that's with an average rating of 2100, which none of you guys are, so I wouldn't be worried. You will likely not have this position on the board at all. So what happens after they play knight to c6 here? It's very important that we remember that we need to pin, okay? There are some very tricky lines if you do not pin. it might look like you want to just take, but I believe this is lost. After knight to d4, they attack our queen, they threaten this. We're gonna have to go here or here, and it's, oh, well, the knight's hanging, so they'll take, we probably should have went here. But then we lose this. It just, don't do this. Don't go into this. Now the knight's protected. We're gonna play bishop b5. We're pinning the knight, there's no tricks. Now they should take, if they play here, I believe we just win a pawn with this. And they can keep developing. We'll just go here. We have a very nice position. We're up a pawn. We can't castle yet, but they can. And then probably just d4. d4, and they got to move the bishop back. Takes, I don't think works. Can they take here? No, because now we protect this, right? Wait a minute. Oh, okay, very key idea. I haven't looked at this very much, but yeah, this is bad. It looks like it's a free pawn, but it's not. And the key is that whatever they take with, we always have this. Well, if they do that, yeah, now they got to protect against this. Can they just do this, though? Maybe this is bad. I haven't actually studied this. Yeah, this is good for black. Okay, don't go into this. I'm just doing this on the fly. So I've only studied a little bit of these positions. So d4 is the most common move. I don't even know if it's a good move. Okay, so if I just turned on the engine because I don't want to guide you guys wrong. d4, if that's played, which is the most common move, knight takes has to be played, otherwise black is lost. And honestly, I don't think many people are going to find this at your level. The point is now we have to go here, and they can recapture with the knight. But this is still pretty good for us, because then, you know, takes, we take this. And it's very tricky here, because if they just go back, now we just, we go here, we threaten the mate. F5 is the move. And then EF. Although I really don't think you guys are going to see this at all. So after knight takes, we're going to, this time, so remember how before we want to take this way, but that's without this. Now, if we have this pin, we're going to take towards the outside. And the reasoning is because we want to get this bishop out and castle. And we just want to try and attack. Now they can kind of transpose here into another line that we just looked at with the queen h4. And we trade, and then we go knight here. And it's just a game. I mean, if they go here, we're probably going to need to take. Otherwise, we're going to lose the pawn. The most common move is this. And let's see. Is it approved by the computer? Yes. Takes. We got to be careful of the pin. Now we can probably just go rook f1. Says the computer. Get out of this nasty pin. And then develop castle. Or we might not even need to castle in these positions, but yeah. This is the most common move, but I'd be scared to play it. It goes back. And then castle. All right, so there's one more line to look at with the Vienna Gambit main line. And this is this f5 move. This is very annoying and it's pretty interesting. And you can get some very interesting moves out of it. We're going to play d3 here. Knight takes, pawn takes. And in this position, black should almost always play d4. And it is 60% of the time played. But that's with an average rating of 2100. So as you can see, a common theme with these the Vienna Gambit main lines, the average rating of the players are very high because people at the lower levels just don't really know these lines. So you're not going to see them very much. But like I said, it's good to know. And yeah, d4 really needs to be played. Otherwise, we play d4. And now we're very, very happy. So like if they just go here, we're playing d4. Don't even think about it. And as you can see, if this is played, now white has a very good win rate. Now we got to take a look at d4 because it's probably going to be played. d4, we're going to play queen to g3. This does a couple things. It protects this pawn. We're not really worried about them taking. We have other issues to deal with. And so we're protecting the pawn. We're making room for the knight potentially. But most importantly, we're stopping black from being able to move this bishop. Because if they move the bishop, let's say here, now we take. So they'll probably just try to put pressure. And now we're just going to get the bishop out. We're looking at this diagonal. It could, at some point, a check here could be pretty good. I've had some games where, you know, this check comes in handy. Bishop to e6 is the most common move. But, yeah, now we're just going to want to block out the bishop. And probably play knight here, maybe kick the bishop, you know. c4, we're not going to really look any further into this because I honestly don't think that you guys will see this, and I don't want you to be studying things that you're probably not going to really see, but you should have an idea of what to do against these things. So that's why I included them in here. And yeah, that is going to wrap up the Vienna Gambit. We're going to be taking a look later on at what happens after here, knight here. Well, not that. We're going to be taking a look at knight to c6. We're going to look at this. We're going to be taking a look at what happens after they go here. Other lines, you know, we're going to have some fun with it. And because you can't just know the Vienna Gambit, because what happens after you play here and they play this, or they play here, like, you know, or here, you know. So we'll be studying more, but this is a good start for you guys to learn. And I'll give you a link to this study here so you can come in and look at it. And then I highly recommend you do what I said with the PGN on Chessable, because it's very useful. So hopefully you learned some stuff.